Hey, good morning, all. Joshua Severe Weather. Happy Friday to you. We've got another big storm getting ready to move into the center of the country and bring some big changes to the weather. Let's get right to it here. Thank you for joining me this morning, by the way. But here is a look at the Saturday storm outlook, and we've got an enhanced risk for what could be some damaging winds, large hail, maybe a few more tornadoes in Arkansas and surrounding states, places that have just been hammered this spring so far with severe weather. And this storm is going to march east right into the eastern United States here over the end of the weekend and start of next week. Going to bring a lot of wind with it, but also some much cooler temperatures. We've seen some record early heat here in the northeastern U.S. and the upper Midwest and parts of southeastern Canada. I've seen some of their warmest temperatures so far in the year. Very extreme if you think about it. And the weather is going to change quite a bit, and we're going to kind of go back into winter for a few more days afterwards. So here's a look at the upper level water vapor imagery. You can see this is the storm system responsible for the severe weather down south and the flooding in Florida. It is spinning across northern Alabama. It will continue moving northeastward, kind of like a little bit of a bowling ball on here. It looks beautiful, but it's not to be I guess over sensationalized. It's an upper level low, but it is now moving. So we do have a lot of moisture coming out of the south and southwest. That's going to bring some wet weather into the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic today into tonight, and that is going to move up into the northeast here for the start of the weekend. So once again, folks, here, I think, what is this, the 15th weekend of the year so far, where we've had some rain in the forecast in the eastern U.S. I know that's not what we all want to hear. Sorry, folks. But hey, it's better than extreme drought too, I guess. So here's our next storm system. You can see a strong trough carving through the western part of the country, sending upper level moisture up into the Dakotas. We will see some more storms firing up today in the Central Plains into tonight, especially. And then that's the storm to watch for tomorrow as winds aloft are going to strengthen. It is not going to be a repeat of what we had back at the end of March. However, does not mean let your guard down. We will see some severe weather for sure. Here is the current map of watches and warnings from the Weather Service, and mostly fire weather watches continuing in the southwest as well as in the upper Great Lakes. We continue to have flash flood watches from Montana into upper Wisconsin as snow melts rapidly, but this is a relatively quiet map, so we're fortunate to have that for now. We did have some severe weather in two places yesterday, one in the southeast, maybe some tornadoes reported as well in Georgia. That hasn't updated yet. And then out on the high plains where the storm chasers love to report severe weather, and hope they're being safe out there, but definitely some severe weather there. But things have been somewhat quiet. Now that is going to change here over the next few days. The Storm Prediction Center for today does have a slight risk of severe weather, mainly towards this evening over parts of Kansas and Nebraska. And we also have a marginal risk with our upper low, the first storm I showed you guys. That is over the Carolinas and Southern Virginia. Not a big tornado threat, but certainly something we're going to have to watch for locally strong winds. And I'll show you those winds. And there will be that potential to see some intense wind later on this evening over parts of central and northern Kansas, as well as southeastern Nebraska. So be prepared for that. And maybe some isolated severe wind as well across the Carolinas. There'll also be a chance for some hail in both of these regions, especially the middle of Kansas, what can be deemed guerrilla hail. So be prepared for that as well. As we get to tomorrow, though, the outlook starts getting more grim, and we do have a more significant chance of seeing severe hail from northeast Texas into south central parts of Missouri, and it could be intense here for a while. I think there'll be more hail farther east based on what the Storm Prediction Center has out over the middle of Arkansas, but initially it could be pretty large. There is also a tornado risk tomorrow, especially towards the afternoon into the early evening hours over central and eastern Arkansas into the Mississippi Delta region. Yes, that includes Rolling Fork and surrounding communities and northeastern Louisiana. Not to say there couldn't be severe weather, including a few tornadoes outside of it, but that's where our chance is going to be the greatest. And we do have a pretty strong chance for some intense winds as well. I don't think right now, looking at it, we're going to see an upgrade to a moderate risk, but enhanced certainly means there'll be a more widespread regional outbreak. So do be prepared for that. As we get to day 3, the chances for severe weather are not as great. The storm system is going to move into a warm air mass. We do have that in place. We do have the strong winds, but we don't quite have the instability that we see farther west. Instability meaning the amount of heating, the amount of sunlight, the amount of available moisture, and convective available potential energy to get bigger storms to go. But if we do have severe weather, certainly there could be some strong winds as our trough kicks eastward here from the eastern lakes right on down into the southeast. And right now, a slight risk for some localized severe weather over parts of Georgia, mainly South Georgia once again, and also into the Midlands of South Carolina. And most of the severe weather chances are going to be limited pretty much to the mid and late afternoon hours. So it won't be as widespread a day of severe weather. However, we are going to see some heavy rain. We are going to see some stronger wind. And I think you guys are going to notice it, but the temperatures will get much colder behind the storm system by the end of the weekend. Here's a look at the HRRR model. You can see rain and storms moving through the Carolinas here this morning and then offshore. And then we're going to have more scattered showers and storms, which could produce some locally strong wind over the Carolinas and then sneaking up into Southern Virginia early this evening. This is probably not going to have the tornado risk we saw yesterday in Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, but certainly there could be a few locally strong storms. So be prepared for that. It is going to move up into the mid-Atlantic tomorrow. We may see a few heavier storms as well over central and eastern Pennsylvania, but not a widespread severe weather event at this point. The area of greater concern is going to be here in the central part of the country. And you'll see, actually, let me go back here. All right. And you'll see an area of some storms popping up here over Kansas right around sunset tonight, 6, 7 o'clock, and building eastward through eastern Nebraska here. So really our main chance for severe weather is going to be in this pocket of storms here this evening, about 7, 8, 9 o'clock in Kansas. And then that grows and moves eastward, but weakens with time. You'll see right behind our storm system, it's cold enough for some snow on the back end here tomorrow. And then as storms get ramped up tomorrow afternoon, we see a large area of what will be probably a squall line with embedded potential supercells out ahead of it in Arkansas. There's also an area of storms to keep an eye on building over South Louisiana and moving through the central Gulf states. While probably not a widespread severe storm, that could produce some very heavy rain with it. And then behind our front here, as it moves through the lakes, we'll see a change over to some wet snow here Saturday night. And I'll get more into that in just a little bit. The threat for tornadoes with this storm is not particularly high, but it is not zero. Yes, there are some parameters in Oklahoma, but it will be capped. The air will be too warm aloft for tornadoes across this region tonight. However, tomorrow, I do think there's going to be a better chance here, mainly over central and southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, but don't rule out that potential for maybe a tornado somewhere here along the Mississippi River Valley from south of Davenport down into the eastern Ozarks region, maybe Branson, Missouri, and into Mississippi as well. Kind of the best chance for that's going to come right around 7 or 8 o'clock down across southern Arkansas here. So something to keep an eye on, and then that chance does diminish. So this is not a repeat of what we saw a couple weeks ago, but nonetheless, there will be that threat for some tornadoes. Now, we've had a lot of rain across parts of the east coast of Florida. We do have the chance for more storms towards 6, 7, 8 o'clock in some of the same areas, but overall a quieter day expected today. I did mention, sorry guys, I'm having allergies here big time. I did mention that complex of storms coming across the central Gulf states tomorrow evening, and this could produce a little bit of severe weather with it right along the Orange Beach and Gulf Shores region over towards about Panama City, but a big time rainmaker as well. Some of the models were showing 3 to 4 inches of rain. I'd love to get to more detail, but there's too much variance to show you guys, but I will have posts throughout the day as those models change. So be prepared for a lot more rain here. We kind of missed out for some of these areas with the storm system that moved in yesterday. We only got about an inch in some places. This, I think, could pack more rain with it here Saturday night. So be prepared for that. Farther to the north and east, we obviously are going to watch out. That was yesterday's model. Here we go. We're going to have to watch out for a few locally strong storms popping up again this afternoon across South Carolina, maybe from Columbia right up 77 to about Charlotte. Not a widespread severe weather event, but maybe some hailers with these. But as we get later into the weekend, we are going to keep an eye on our storm complex moving in from the west. You'll notice by 2 in the morning Sunday, it hasn't arrived yet. But as we look at the NAM model here, and go farther off, we can see there will be a few scattered showers and storms over South Georgia here, and some of these could be locally strong. The main event, though, is going to hold off until later in the afternoon as we see storms firing in this region. My model doesn't go out that far, so I can't fix that for you guys, but we are going to have more updates on that. And finally, here in North Carolina and Virginia, we do have a wet morning. Rain's going to spread into Raleigh and Greenville this morning. A few heavier storms possible north of Greensboro. Then we see a bit of a lull and then kind of more scattered activity here, kind of like what you would see during the summertime, where you could have some intense rainfall and could have a lot of lightning here around the Triad and north of Raleigh here around 8 o'clock. So keep an eye on these storms. They may stay organized into southern Virginia up through the early evening, and then things will weaken. Back across East Tennessee, southwestern Virginia, eastern Kentucky, and right on into southern and central parts of West Virginia, we could see some heavy rainfall through this evening. So mainly in that 6 to about 10 o'clock time frame. Be prepared for locally heavy rain in Charleston, down to Beckley, and in those areas as well. And farther to the south and west, things are quieter across Alabama and Mississippi until our next storm arrives. We could see heavy storms later Saturday into Saturday evening over southern Mississippi. And then you can see the severe weather threat here in Arkansas moving onto the Delta here right around 11 o'clock. So there is a tornado risk, there is a strong wind risk, and a lot of it's going to come again during the late evening and overnight hours over the Delta region of Mississippi, with some weakening by the time things do start to get east of Jackson around 1 in the morning on Sunday. So if you're in Mississippi, yes, I know you guys have had a rough spring. However, we do not want to let our guard down for this line of storms that's going to hit the area overnight. And then finally in Arkansas, we obviously have to be mindful of this line of storms that's going to get going. Things should be quiet during the day, so your afternoon activities will be okay until about 5 o'clock. And then around 6, 7, and 8 o'clock is when we'll see our maximum chance for storms, including tornadoes, especially around Conway and Little Rock and on southward towards El Dorado into northern parts of Louisiana. And even the Memphis area certainly could see a localized severe storm here between 9 and 10 o'clock. At this point, I don't think we have a large tornado risk. In fact, if I pull up a sounding here from just south of Memphis here, it does show, yes, there is some wind shear. There is some chance for a tornado, but probably not large tornadoes. It's very, very likely that we could see a few tornado warnings, but also just a squall line that moves through with embedded bow echoes in this region. In Missouri, we're watching storms moving into the northwest corner overnight tonight, maybe sneaking into St. Louis in the morning tomorrow, and then storms firing back up in the afternoon in northwest Missouri and tracking up into southeastern Iowa. We will again see storms over central and southern Missouri. It's a little bit uncertain as to how intense they could be, but something to keep an eye on in St. Louis right around 6, 7 o'clock. So be prepared for that. And then those storms move into Illinois, and they should weaken, except maybe in far downstate Illinois here. We'll have to keep an eye on the threat for storms, basically down towards Carbondale and Edwardsville and those areas here. And in the Northeast, we are going to see this upper low bringing some cooling rain showers, maybe a few thunderstorms in tomorrow. So expect some wet weather in the afternoon in parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland. Probably nothing severe at this point. The upper low is kind of weakening with time, and it's hitting some drier air aloft here. So it will not be what we saw in Georgia yesterday or even the Carolinas for today, but we could have a few showers here that will knock temperatures down here by Sunday morning. The rest of the Ohio Valley, you can see, is going to turn unsettled here as our storms continue to track eastward into Illinois Saturday night, Indiana overnight. Probably not a lot of severe weather, but be prepared just in case. I don't think we're going to see widespread watches and warnings, but we could have a few heavier storms. And then this storm line is going to get going here in the afternoon across the middle of Indiana, central Kentucky, eastern Tennessee. It looks like the best wind aloft is going to be up in here. And we may see an increase to a slight risk for severe weather. Now, temperatures are going to take a big change here. We're way above average again today in the Northeast, tomorrow across Southeast Canada. But look how close the cold air is right behind the warm air, just a huge drop coming. And as we get later into Sunday, into Monday, much below average temperatures, but it's not going to last forever. We do have a warm up coming once again towards the middle of next week. The forecast highs today are in the 90s in Scranton and Hartford and north central Jersey. So record highs once again today, still very warm as well over the plains, comfortable in the southeast where we do have that cloud cover, but it'll be turning colder here. So we go from the 80s down into the 40s and 50s tomorrow across Nebraska and Kansas. Still pretty warm in the Northeast, but not as hot as it has been Even parts of Canada, though, could get well above 30 degrees Celsius for another day tomorrow before temperatures do start to tumble. Notice New England is cooling off. We have that sea breeze and that onshore wind. Even Connecticut's going to be cooler tomorrow. So the high pressure region that's bringing that summer preview is going to be squashed here with cooler temperatures. And as we get to Sunday, it's still pretty warm. I mean, Pittsburgh and Charleston are going to be in the low 80s. Still pretty warm as well in the mid-Atlantic region, but cooler when you get up into northeastern PA, into New York and New England. This is above average, but it's not going to be record territory. And notice Chicago, we're at 65, but that's probably going to be an earlier day high as temperatures fall back into the 30s and 40s, and we see some wet snowflakes. And we're back into the 30s and 40s in the Great Lakes for Monday as temperatures start tumbling. Tuesday's highs will be even chillier in the Northeast, 40s and 50s with 30s in the mountains. But warmer air does lurk behind it. In fact, the West is going to be pretty warm this weekend. 80s in Cal, 90s in Arizona for Sunday, and that warmth continues into Monday as well. We do have some snow in the forecast, mainly in the Rockies for now, but notice we are going to see a pretty significant snowfall over northeastern Minnesota, 4 potential inches of accumulation here on Sunday, and as much as a foot may accumulate over northern Ontario. That continues to build on Monday, so we have pretty significant snow here. We'll even see snow showers across the Great Lakes and even into upstate New York, where an inch or two may fall. So we're in the 70s, 80s, even low 90s. Now we're talking about some snow earlier next week. So be prepared for that. More updates coming on that as well in early next week's videos. I'll have a video for you guys in the morning, but feel free to subscribe to this channel. I really appreciate your support. If you do, that gets me out there and gives you guys the ability to see more content from me. And if you could like this video and share with your friends, I very much would appreciate that. Thank you for your time today. I want to give credit where credit is due, and that is to my Lord and my Savior, Jesus Christ, who gives me the drive to do this every day. In fact, I'm serving him as a child of God. Ephesians 6, 7, and 8, serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each one for whatever good they do, whether they are slave or free. And it just means a lot to me that I know that even on a bad day, I'm still out there serving, and I want to serve you guys and keep you and protect you from the weather that's coming in. But in the end, this is serving God. This is sharing my faith. This is sharing what's most important to me and why I'm called to do what I'm doing every day. So apologize, a little bit rusty here. I'm getting my blood drawn here in a little bit, so no caffeine today. So I'll get there. But I thank you for your time. And if you have any prayer requests, please feel free to leave them for me. They do not go unnoticed. I will pray for you. Thank you so much. Have a blessed Friday. Talk again in the morning.